So yeah, as you can see, it's a kind of self-indulgent one, and I like to do these little character videos, don't? And you know, Squid Game is very much the thing of the moment, isn't it? Obviously, there will be spoilers, and if you know me, you kind of know why I love Squid Game so much, and it ain't the violence and stuff. It's basically what it's about. So if you don't really know what Squid Game's about, or you don't like the theme, then probably best not to watch it really, because yeah, obviously I'm going to be talking about the themes and everything as I kind of go through it. Just a little kind of introduction to it. Basically, it's like the creators made it to be like this group of games around the concept of Korean childhood games. Yeah, I'm not really down for the American version. Why do we need to strip other people's cultures and make it rubbish? But whatever, that's something else. Yeah, it's about these games, and what it does is it picks the most vulnerable people from society, people in debt, people who won't kind of be able to resist that chance to get out of debt, get out of the trap. And it's obviously organised and viewed, and kind of, you know, they get a kind of lustful satisfaction from watching poor people die and humiliate themselves. So it's from the wealthy. I'll get a bit more into how it was set up and who set it up, because it's one of the characters. I'm only going to be talking about the main characters, obviously. I'm not going to go through everybody in there. But yeah, it's an allegory of capitalism and how it is set up, and just that the poor, we're basically there to serve the rich, to make sure they have the best kind of lifestyles, whilst we do all the work for pennies. And the thing is, they manipulate us so much that we fight each other for these scraps and these pennies. We kind of don't pay attention to them, do we? It's like this, I don't know, I'm not going to go too long with this, but in the UK there's like this wealth tax has kind of been dangled, and the papers and everyone, oh my god, a wealth tax, everyone will leave. And we're like, well, do you know what it is? If you're wealthy and you're not paying any tax, I'll pack your bags for you, bugger off, don't want you in this country. If you, being someone who's like a patriotic citizen who wants to help everyone out in the country, also give some money back to the country where you got rich and exploited many people, and basically you can bugger off. But obviously, yeah, we know who controls the media, we know who controls societies and worlds. I mean, you look at your big beautiful bollocks, your big beautiful bill over there. That's not to help poor people. And you will never be that rich. No one in this country will ever be that rich. We have a royal family. You're born into this wealth. It's something like 80% of the people that were the richest families in the 1600s still are now. It's all inherited wealth. They don't do a day's work or anything. But yeah, the point is it's just that kind of using of us poor. We used to have things on TV over here called benefit porn. It was just like the poorest people in society being filmed and mocked on TV, Jeremy Kyle, things like that. And yeah, it's just basically about how we're controlled to do the most disgusting things, to do literally anything just to survive, and to turn on each other, and how that kind of thirst, not even to be rich, to just get out of the hole we're in, can really turn and test human nature, and that we become animals again. It's a brilliant show. It's just a brief overview, otherwise this will be like 7 hours long. So yeah, that's that. So first up, we're going to start with the workers there in the Squid Games, the staff, if you like, or the guards as they are, and they actually have a class system as well. They are if I get this right, the circles are the people who, you know, clean up the blood, maintain the room, bring the food and stuff like that. And you have the triangles who are like the guards of the games. and do all that kind of thing. Then you have the squares, who are like the managers, if you want to put it that way. I don't know how, there's not a lot explained about this, which is why I've just put them all together. There is obviously one character you get to know who ends up being one of these, but it doesn't matter for now. You kind of get the idea that In-ho picks them himself to these positions, because obviously the lady who we get to know a bit was kind of hand-picked in a certain kind of way, not quite in the same way as the contestants. Maybe they come people who come from a better background, so they think they deserve a bit more respect or something. And as far as I can tell, the squares particularly can leave and come back, and they must follow the rules or whatever. They are, as to keep everything fair, they are just as culpable as the contestants and stuff for following the rules. For example, In-ho shoots one of them for taking his mask off. Simple fact, he broke the rules, and they're all supposed to be anonymous in that. Even they aren't allowed to see who each other is and that. Although I imagine, you know, In-ho and the people who are monitoring them, they know who they are and that, which would be the squares again, wouldn't it? So yeah, and how would I scent them? Well, I've actually gone for a kind of obvious, but not really obvious one. That's from Maison Viole, and it's Pourpre d'Automne. And the reason I've gone for this one is because they will go in there. Pourpre d'Automne is kind of this, it's a dry orris violet. It's kind of a cold one. There's a little bit of sweetness in there. And it's just meant to represent autumn. And it's just very mauve coloured smelling. And it becomes very melancholic. And I think this is a perfect representation of these people. They will go in there because they are desperate as well. So whatever it is that's meant they're susceptible and they've been chosen to do this, and that they would be willing to do the things they're doing, is there's a little bit of hope there at first, isn't there? That citric sparkle at the beginning of the fragrance, and then slowly, ultimately, they must just die inside. It must be like autumn before they're just completely dead inside. And I think that would probably represent how, you know, the promotion and stuff and the class system of that, if you like. The people at the bottom will be a bit more hopeful, because all they're doing is cleaning up blood and stuff. They're not really involved in it. And then in the middle, they're the people doing the guarding and the killing. So that's going to start to get to you. Then the people at the top must be completely dead, and I think that kind of representation of melancholy and coldness and stuff is kind of a perfect one for it. So for the guards, I've gone for Maison Violet's Pourpre d'Automne. Next, I may as well go for one of the contestants. Probably one of my favourite contestants from them all, but contestant again who's that stands out a little bit from the rest of them, and that's Hyung-ju. Is it Hyung-ju? Yeah. Who is ultimately, she's a former Marine, I think. She served, and she saw combat and stuff, and she's very brave and very strong, and she's also transgendered, which I think everyone, it's just woke. And no, I think it's an important factor to put in it, because obviously I don't live in Korea, but I understand their culture's different. And this would have been really kind of groundbreaking and stuff, and it does go through a little bit of the struggles she's had, and the crap she's been through, and kind of even when she first goes in it, some of the other contestants are quite horrible and judgy, even some of the ones she becomes really good friends with and really good to. And Hyung-ju, it kind of typifies that. The other side of it is, does it really matter, you know, what somebody is and what somebody, you know, feels they are. She'd served bravely her country, and done everything for her society, and she still ends up being so desperate she has to go do something like the games. And it's a kind of really big because she's judged, because the society sneers her, even though she's done everything she possibly can. And it's the same in the games. She's unbelievably brave, and she's very protective of people. She protects them that she cares about and stuff. And in the end, ultimately, she dies because she finds the way out of the game, and she can get out of the game, but she's helped deliver a baby which she was protecting whilst it was happening, and she couldn't leave them behind, so she goes back, and then she gets stabbed in the back by a coward. And it's just, she's such a brilliant character, and I think she's probably the most similar to Ji-hun out of them, in the fact that she's just too good for the games, you know. We all know the sorts of people that generally win and do well in these games are the selfish ones, but she kind of, I suppose in the end, her goodness cost her her life, didn't it? And again, a representation of society, isn't it? It's because you might do the right thing, you might be a carer, and you're earning minimum wage, working ridiculous hours a week to do a really difficult, draining job, but you'll hear in the, oh, well, just need to work hard, you just need to get another job if you can't afford to live doing this really important job. But you know, I turn up at a bank once a month, I press a button, I make £1 billion, or I lose the country £1 billion. There's no consequence, there's nothing to that, I just keep getting richer. It's that kind of, I think that's a little bit of what she represents. Anyway, for her, I've picked April Aromatics, Lotus Rising, and again, similar to that. I do know this, the flower of Korea is a not a chrysanthem, oh, what the heck's it called, it will come to me, a hibiscus flower. So I've gone for Lotus because it's kind of an eastern flower, but it's this kind of something that's emerged from the mud, isn't it? It's a beautiful flower, it has so much symbolism about the rebirth and things like that, and it kind of smells, it's got all the mud round it, and it's got that blue, it's got that beautiful floral aspect about it. It really does smell literally like a lotus in a calm stream, and obviously with her being kind of transgendered and stuff, she's been reborn, which is what a lotus kind of symbolises, and hope and love. So I just think it's a really perfect fragrance that represents her. So yeah, for Hyung-ju is April Aromatics Lotus Rising. Now next is another important person. They're all the important people. Is the recruiter. Again, I don't think he actually has a name in it. He's just the guy who you start seeing in the beginning of the games. The guy kind of goes looking for these vulnerable people, and they play this little Korean game with the two squares, a red and a green one. And it's I mean I've seen the game and what have you, but I don't really understand it all that too much. But they play that game, and if it's kind of gambling, and if they lose they get a slap across the face because they've got nothing to give, have they? And in the end he gives them the Squid Game card and that. But as it goes on, you find a bit more out about the recruiter, and he's very clever, but he's probably a complete psychopath, and I don't mean that in like, oh, he's a psycho. I mean, he has psychopathic qualities about him. One of the things you see him do in the outside world is it's like a little social test where he goes to a park where there's all these homeless people. He offers them a sandwich or a lottery ticket. It's almost like it's an interesting social experiment, isn't it? And these homeless people with nothing, what he tends to find is more of them take the lottery ticket where there's a 1 in a million chance of winning something, rather than meet their immediate need of being hungry. And this is a really disgusting experiment, but nonetheless quite fascinating. And he does things like that, and then as it goes on later, he found out he quite happily killed his own father. He doesn't regret it or feel anything about it. He's very arrogant and cocky. He thinks he's completely untouchable. He completely believes in what he's doing and the cause, which again is quite interesting. So all in all, although we don't get much about him, he's actually a fairly interesting character, and obviously a very important part of the games. I doubt he's the only one. He's certainly not going to be the only one in Korea, so they're all over. And then you meet the American version of him in the last scene. I might talk about that later. Anyway, what have I gone for him? And I wondered about this. And I had a few cents because I wanted to mention, you know, fragrances I don't talk about a lot. And genuinely, I could only really think of Creed Aventus. And the reason I've gone for that is it quite arrogantly calls itself the king. It was mega popular, it was everywhere. And then it's not just that, it was all the different versions of it that made me think of the Recruiter, because there are so many different versions of the Recruiter clearly round about. And it's one of them fragrances that people, men, think it, you know, it's a proper, inverted commas, panty dropper. It's the Don, you just smell good. You should be getting compliments, especially if you own the original. You've paid £300 for this fragrance, so you know it's kind of got if the fragrance was a person, it would have a similar personality to the Recruiter, I think. So yeah, that's enough waffle for that. For the Recruiter is Creed Aventus. Now next up is, I've kind of almost covered these in the introduction, is the VIPs. You do get to see the faces briefly, you don't really know who they are. But you know that they're super wealthy people who are paying lots and lots of money to play this game of humans, to play with human lives, to be gods, because their lives are so meaningless and so insignificant to them. These are the people I was speaking about before, you know, these people who don't think they should pay tax, who think they're better than everyone else, and that the rest of the population, we're just puppets, we're just rats, we're just there to serve them. We're not even human, we don't deserve the same kind of values and what have you that they live by. They can't understand why people would even do the games. You know, they can't understand that feeling of desperation. I don't care who's watching this, who will unsubscribe for this. These are your Donald Trumps, your Jeff Bezoses, your Elon Musks, your Prince Williams, you know, your King Charles. These people who pretend that they're men of the people, but they're not. We are just mere toys and puppets to them, and we're not even alive. Do you know what I mean? We're just scurrying insects or whatever, and they will never understand what it is to live ultimately. We'll get into this a bit more later on. There is a slight hint of sympathy from me, but again we'll get into that. And yeah, they're just the absolute scum of the earth. You can't even call them evil because they have no comprehension of what they're doing. One of Gi-hun's lines towards the end is, "We are not horses," which is ultimately, it's a sport to them, isn't it? And again, I know this is like an extreme allegory of capitalism and 21st century life, but it isn't really, is it? They want, like our governments are squeezing the help for the poor. They're making sure the wages aren't enough to live off, almost as like an experiment. How much can we get away with? How much can we take from them and then give to us before they snap? And it's yeah, the VIPs are just the worst of the worst, sadly, in it, because they're given these weird American accents, some of them. They're kind of a bit cartoonish, which takes away from just how deplorably disgusting they are. Like, say, certain leaders in the world who are committing genocides against a bunch of people they don't see as human so they can steal their land. It's not about this, but you know, they use that they are God's chosen people, so they must murder everybody else on the land and stuff. This isn't just now in that war, this has always been the way it has been in Western society. And clearly, if this is Korean in Asian society and Eastern society and stuff. And it's never about the people, is it? It's never to benefit the people, it's to benefit the people at the top. And this is who these people are. This is who the VIPs represent and who they are. All normal, everyday people with nothing to them. With just a bit of entertainment. The people who do the work and everything, you know. And what I've picked for the VIPs is Initio's Oud For Greatness. Again, similar to Aventus, this fragrance was hyped to all heck. It is a nothing fragrance. It is shallow, it is empty, it's not creative, it has no soul. It just is a big goop of stuff. A big chemical goop that's sold for a ridiculous price. And obviously this good on this brand, I mean it's good marketing, isn't it? Or because this was a PR brand, Initio. Sent it all out, and because they say it costs this much, people would pump and pump it. It is just goop. It's like this synthetic, horrible lavender mixed with this oud accord, shall we call it, to be polite. And it's just a long goop. And it's very, very loud. It's very, very obnoxious. It owns a room, if you like, but it has no right to. It's just the loudest thing in the room. Nobody can escape it. And it's kind of like the VIPs, you know what I mean? No one can escape them, they're just there. They don't do anything, there's nothing about them. They're just the loudest about, aren't they? So, yeah, I think that kind of perfectly suits the VIPs. So that's Initio, Oud For Greatness. Now we're coming into the three most important individuals, and my favourites, I suppose. Well, up there with my favourites in the thing. And first of all, we're going to start with Hyung-ju. Now, Hyung-ju is the old guy who was in the first series, who you kind of deceptively take this great sympathy with him. He's just a doddery old man. You can't really understand why he's there. He's not altogether with it. And he's quite cute, he's quite excitable by it all. He seems to get a thrill from it, and then, you know, he's so weak and kind of not with it. He wets himself. He seems to lose his mind quite a lot. He's reminded by a lot of things. One of the things you don't really realise is at points he gives away who he is. You will not see this the first time you watch it, whatever anyone says. Like where he's saying, oh, this is exactly the street where I grew up on, where they play the marbles games and stuff. And up until the end, that's all you really know of him. And Gun-hee kind of proves him wrong. You'll see what I mean by proves him wrong, because Gun-hee knows how Ji-hun, not Gun-hee, Ji-hun kind of makes him, he looks after him. He takes pity on him and kind of helps him out. He shows him humanity, which is a rare thing in this kind of these games. And then at the end you find out that actually Hyung-ju is actually possibly the most evil in the whole damn thing, by a long way. Maybe not quite there with the VIPs, but perhaps he's the person who set it up. He set it up in 1988, as it happens. He's a person who made money from factories. He just had loads and loads of money, and the way he justifies it is he had loads and loads of more money than anything or anyone, and he just lost all of his life. You know, everything was numb. When you've got everything, what else is there to have? And he just wanted some excitement in his life, and he remembered when he was setting this up the games he used to play as a child, which he was actually the best at, funnily enough, and they're all these Korean kind of schoolyard games. So that's how he designed it round it, because he got some passion and some joy and excitement from them. And then because he's got so much money, he's so detached, he would have got a kick, a thrill out of watching these people and analysing them and seeing that they're just ants, they're nothing, they don't have feelings, they will just scurry around and do anything for this amount of money. So obviously he got a sick gratification, a sick twist. He felt something, he felt excited, gambling with these people's lives, watching them tortured, watching them suffer, watching them play these games and predicting, you know, oh, such and such will kill someone, they will do this, and ultimately believing all humans are as bad as him, even the poor, because he would do anything for money, with having no understanding of why. Just, you know, they're just like us, it's just the thrill, it's just when it's not that. And he became very detached, and I think he must have realised he was dying, which is why he wanted to take part in the games, like one last chance in his life to feel and what have you. And then he tells Gi-hun at the end, and I don't know, you don't really get much time, it's again rushed a bit. Gi-hun's shocked, and I don't think he sympathises with him or understands why he does it, but he doesn't really react to him. I suppose, how could you react to such absolute utter evil and depravity, especially when he obviously bonded with him and stuff, thought he was this vulnerable man. And it's a really interesting, and that's like twist of the century again in something, isn't it? Really, I like that twist. I'm sure many people didn't and would complain about it, but it made it, yeah, something no one saw coming. Now, what I've picked for Oud is Myths Man from Amouage. The reason I picked this is it's actually quite a beautiful fragrance. Starts with the chrysanthemum, the bursting of a flower, quite a bold flower. It's quite an important flower in the world, isn't it? And it starts with that. And then you kind of get this LME coming through, you know, these classy resins. This is him at his pomp. And also, slowly, there's this like lovely iris coming through, like silvery, strandy, slightly floral iris. But around it all at first is this burning. You get this burning there. This is the burning of his soul, his heart, isn't it? And then by the end of it, it's like these burnt, charred ashes with little bits of sweetness, and that iris there, this once proud, brilliant man, it's now just ashes. He's burnt his humanity away and everything like that. I know I'm pushing it, but yeah, that's it. That's for Oud is Myths Man from Amouage. Next up is the main kind of person throughout the whole thing, that's Gi-hun. Why is he not number one in here? Well, because he's not quite the most important person, is he? Now, Gi-hun is one of these people, again, he'd worked really hard when he was young. He got married, I think she got pregnant, he had a good job. And then that all went kind of tits up. They changed the contracts in his factory. People went on strike. One of his friends got shot dead, I think. And it was just all a bit messy, so he left that job and he tried to set up businesses. He did this and that. And everything just failed. And he was left kind of poverty-stricken. His marriage broke apart. He wasn't allowed to see his kid and stuff. He's living with his mum, and then his mum gets sick. He goes out gambling, he takes money from his mum's purse and stuff to do this gambling. And he just doesn't really have much luck, but obviously the gambling's taking over because he wants that easy way out. Which is obviously how he's vulnerable and a perfect candidate for this kind of thing. And his humanity's going. You know, if you're stealing money from your mum. Anyway, he goes into the games, he sees how awful it is, they vote to come out. Then he bumps into Oud suspiciously. And they all end up going back in. Now his mum is ill and he wants to get the money because to pay for the operation and stuff. It's like a good thing, but if he hadn't stole the money, you know what I mean, he hadn't gambled the money away and all of that, none of that would have happened. So there's that element of it. And he goes in. Anyway, he wins. And during this win he had to kill one of his childhood friends. It was just the most awful thing, seeing all these people die and stuff. And he wins and he comes out and he doesn't ever really touch the money until he spots again the recruiter, and then he decides to make it his mission to bring this evil thing down. And that's what he spends a bit of his money on. He hires some people to keep an eye out. Anyway, he ends up back on the island, playing it for a second time. And one of the things the front man, who we'll come on to shortly, asks him at some point is, do you still have faith in humanity? Do you see the goodness and stuff like this? And he believes it. And that's how he tries to play the games. And he tries to think he can convince them to just leave. He wants to bring it all down. And things go badly. He sparks up some sort of thing where they go and attack the guards to try and take over it, which ultimately goes wrong. He's betrayed in bits and things like that. But it ultimately goes wrong. And this is where you see, for the first time, Gi-hun dead inside, broken, destroyed to pieces. Maybe he has stopped believing in humanity, and he obviously wishes he was dead at this point. And then things happen. He then kills someone whose fault it really wasn't his fault that their coup, if you like, failed, but it's something to blame it on, because otherwise it would all be him. He must have known they'd never had a chance of succeeding. So he kills him, and I think he feels a regret. Of course it wasn't that other person's fault. And then he hits even more kind of rock bottom after that game. But what it is that kind of brings his humanity back is player 222. Sunju, no, is it something? It might be Sunju. I can't remember her name off the top of my head. Anyway, player 222 has a baby, and she ultimately asks him, because he's a good man, to be the one that looks after it, to save it, because she can't. Because she's broken her ankle and stuff, and she just can't. And she decides it's better to sacrifice herself so that, you know, her baby can be okay and Ji-hun can look after her. And then, you know, you have lots of you realise Ji-hun has been talking to the front man because he pretended to be a character in it. He's tested, he ultimately meets him. And then, this is spoilers, I already said the spoilers. And obviously in the end, we all saw this coming. Ji-hun sacrifices himself to save the baby in the end. He was going to sacrifice himself to save the baby and his dad, until they realised that the dad was going to kill the baby so he could keep all the money. You know, his sense of humanity comes back. And you can interpret the ending in so many ways. But the fact he left the baby and trusted that the front man would honour him, the baby getting all the money, but also that the baby would be safe and not killed, is because there must have been something in him that knew somewhere in the front man was a little bit of humanity. And it's really good. Ji-hun, again, he isn't a perfect character. He has many flaws, like I said there, but ultimately he is the hope of humanity. He's like your Jeremy Corbyn or your Nelson Mandela, or, you know, Martin Luther King. People like this who are like, we are more than animals. We will rise up and we will be the better people. We will be human and we will live again, despite how you treat us. And I think, like his last line, like I said, about being a horse, and then it leaves it up in the air stupidly. Humans are, before he jumps off the cliff, so he never finishes that. But I suppose it's whatever you want it to be, isn't it, really? And what I've picked to scent Gi-hun, this again was really hard, is Viole Nere. And now this is a fragrance from Mio Fusciuni, and I've got to be quick with it. It starts off like icy, like dead, like winter. All the ground's dead, there's nothing there. And then you kind of get, as it slowly goes on, as Ji-hun went through the games and he met people, especially more in the second one, the flowering comes through and it grows and grows, and it becomes kind of like a beautiful floral violet, but ultimately around it is still that cold, dusty deadness of winter. Yeah, there's green, there's the violet, it's beautiful, it's pretty, but the dry cold orris lingers throughout it all. And I think to kind of represent Ji-hun, even when he jumped off at the end, there must have been a relief there, that cold darkness, that wonder. He'd proved that you could be human, you could be decent, it didn't matter what anyone else did. The front man offered him a way out, a way of saving himself and the baby by killing others, and he didn't choose it. He stayed free and he stayed human. So yeah, I think the fragrances and that go together well. That's Ji-hun, and Fusciuni's Viole. Now finally is the most important character, and potentially my favourite, and the least explored. Now it's Inho who's the front man. Now it's complicated. Is he the most evil character in it? Potentially. But he's not a cartoonish evil villain like the VIPs and stuff. Inho is, yeah, he's complicated. You don't get enough about his backstory, you don't get enough about him, which is sad. And if there is spin-offs and what have you from it, I hope they explore Inho first. Now, his life kind of started quite young, where the kind of important things happened to him. He donated his kidney to his brother, Junho. I'm not even going to talk about Junho. The storyline he had, it went nowhere and it wasted time. I certainly completely agree with that. But anyway, Inho, now the fact he's donated his kidney early on becomes important anyway. He works for the police. He's quite successful at his job. He's good at his job. You know, he sticks by the book from what you can tell anyway. Does his job well. Anyway, his wife gets ill, and I believe she might need a kidney, you know, or something. And he asks for help. He asks them to kind of help him out and stuff. There's no help. So he goes, you know, he borrows money off dodgy people. He's a police officer. And in the end, he loses his job. So again, he's one of these that's given everything, done everything right. Asked for help and there's none there. So he's tried to do other things. Anyway, that's how he ends up in the games. To try and get the money to save his wife and his unborn child and stuff. So he goes away. Anyway, we find out later on he won it. And the same option he gave Ji-hun, Oil Nan offered him. But in the end he takes it and he stabs all these people to death. We don't know what he was like in the games first time round, whether, you know, he was a good man and he was doing it in the right way. We don't know. But yeah, he kills all these people, and that's where you probably see the last of his humanity drain away, which is a shame, isn't it, really? You wouldn't call him particularly not understandable. Anyway, he goes out, he wins, his wife is dead. It's too late. He's lost his wife and his baby. So how he ends up back in the games, we don't know. How he ends up as being Oil Nan's successor, we don't really know. But what we do know is maybe he's perfect for it, because he is absolutely, completely dead inside. There's no humanity left in him. He's gone, and he kind of runs it well until the first season, I suppose, where his brother comes back and to save his brother, so his brother's not killed, he shoots him in the side and makes sure he's rescued and tells him to never come back, because I suppose again his brother, there's a little bit of a risk to him, isn't it? It gives him a little bit, brings some of that humanity back, which doing his job he cannot afford to have. He then takes parts in the games with Ji-hun, and despite the way he runs everything, being about the rules and fairness, he cheats an awful lot. He's very deceptive. He's very arrogant as well. He's just cold. He understands his role and he just does it. Again, we don't know just how high up he is, how much he might control the other games and stuff. But he's a really interesting person, and it's Ji-hun that changes him. He wants to be proved right, that we will all give up our humanity for a way out, if you like. He wants to prove that Ji-hun would, given the option and the choice and the no way out, would take the same route he did. But Ji-hun proves him wrong in the end, doesn't he? He doesn't take the knife and kill all the people. And in the end, he sacrifices his own life to save the child. And basically, before he dies, says, you know, I am still human. And maybe this has changed the front man. Inho, maybe it has. We don't really find out. and we don't know, although he does things after the games and after his death that would imply maybe there's a little change in there, maybe there's a little glimmer of hope. But you know, if this goes on, who knows? I mean, if it doesn't, I wish we got to know more about him, but it's best to leave it hanging, isn't it, really? Will he be involved in the American games? Yeah, I don't know, because we want to get his backstory. Yes, I want him to be. But at the same time, this is a Korean show. This is culturally Korean. The American ones just... I'll go into this in the end anyway. Anyway, the fragrance I've picked for him is The Promise from Frederic Malle. Now this is, I think we all know this one. It's this very bold, massive rose. It's quite a bitter rose, and there's like a rotten apple. A really overripe kind of apple you can imagine maggots on. It doesn't smell bad, by the way, don't say that. But what it's got this real darkness about it. Despite being incredibly beautiful and big and bold and a boss fragrance, there's this underlying darkness, this kind of almost scary darkness. There is a kind of aromatic touch to it. It's just kind of a bit wrong when you smell it, you know what I mean? It'll give you... make your hair stand on end and have a few chills and stuff. It's that kind of fragrance. But it is bold, you know, if you just look at it on the surface, bold, beautiful, you know, boss man fragrance. And I just think it suits him a lot because he is, you know, ultimately, he is like a god, isn't he, ultimately? And he takes his job very seriously. And he does it, and he decides who lives or dies, and he does that without any feelings whatsoever. He doesn't look shocked or upset. He doesn't seem to particularly overly take any pleasure from it. He's just a shell. So yeah, I think that suits him really well. So for Inho is Frederic Malle's The Promise. So I'm going to try and keep this ending brief. I love these like scenting my favourite shows and stuff and the characters. Obviously these are all my opinions. But yeah, ultimately it's a show about the evil of the world and capitalism, which I'm first to admit, now we're in the conclusion, is very ironic that they're then now cashing in on this show by having spin-offs and such like, and selling out Korean culture to make an American English speaking version. Why? Why, oh why, oh why? The West is not the only part of the world. Our kind of shallow culture takes over everything. Stop stealing and remaking things, eh? Come up with some ideas by yourself. And the very fact it had the American recruiter in at the end, almost like a nod to, yeah, there's going to be an American version of this. It's the irony of Netflix, isn't it? Of course it's, you know, this whole thing critical of the whole system and greed, then kind of does this bit at the end of this whole thing as a kind of homage to greed. Let's have more greed, let's make more money. So that was the disappointing part of the end to me. I really enjoyed it. I understand what people have said about this and that on it. Some bits don't make sense, it's a bit contrived, it's little bits predictable. There wasn't enough kind of depth to some of the people there. Look, he did his best. We know what Netflix is like. He's lucky he didn't get cancelled despite being so successful. If Netflix can make a penny from something, it will go on forevermore. And that's all that really matters. But yeah, I find that there was a lot more characters. I've just kind of gone for the most important parts of it, if you like, not necessarily even individual characters, wasn't it? And centered it. And this is either going to be my 500th or my 501st or my 499th video. I haven't wriggled them out yet. So it's what my channel's about, me exploring my passions, fragrance being the main one, but also I love kind of analysing characters and stories and things. So I mean, I'll thank you for being here with me all this time and watching. Well, no one's watched all 500, but being part of it. And I know this is not one loads of people will particularly watch, but it's my passion, and people humour me with it, and I suppose enjoy some things. So yeah, how would you scent these characters? Did you enjoy the ending and the show? Like I said at the beginning, I apologise if I've spoiled anything, but there was spoilers. I remembered to mention that, which I don't normally. So thanks folks, bye.